And you know that if that little recording thing has to be going, otherwise it's dead, okay?
State your name.
My name is Christopher Easton.
And who are you?
Who am I? Let's see, I'm a single guy living in West Hollywood, California. This is really strange. Suddenly I'm on the other side of this. I'm a single gay male, underlined gay male, very happily, very politically so, gay male, living in West Hollywood, California. I have a very strange but very good life. I live alone with my kitty, who is the most important thing to me in my entire life. I love her. Um, let's see, I'm 37. I am healthy, happy for the most part, productive, kind of, lazy a lot of the time, uh, but basically pretty functional.
And your sign?
My sign, I'm a Virgo, barely on the cusp of Libra, which gives me that perfect opportunity to be totally psychotic and neurotic sometimes.
What qualities describe your sign?
Well, Virgos are notoriously anal. They're perfectionists. They're known for being a bit cool, cold, distant at times. They tend to be people who are way up in their heads. And Libras, I don't know a whole lot about, but what I have picked up from Libras is that they tend to be people who enjoy life. They tend to be partiers. They tend to be very friendly, outgoing, very happy-go-lucky. And so I really do have sort of that anal retentive kind of quality that the Virgo gives, but at the same time, I feel this sort of like needling deep in my soul of the Libra screaming to get out, and so that tends to make big appearances, especially on special occasions when I have an excuse to let it all hang out. So I think I'm pretty polarized in my personality because of it. Not that I believe in any of it.
How old would you like to live to, and why?
Mm. How old would I like to be? Okay, I'm going to editorialize that one. I have always been of the belief, ever since I was a very small child, that I was going to live to be 98 years old. And I'm not quite sure where that came from, but I do remember that the first time I guess I asked myself that question or whatever, um, this voice in my head said, "You will live to be 98 years old." Not that I want to live to be that old either. I look at that as a bit of a curse because I'm not sure, looking at your average 98-year-old, if I really want to be in that state. So now it's time to answer the question.
Okay, now where were we?
98 years old, and I'm not sure I really want to go there. How old do I think I'm going to be? My best guess is that I'm going to live probably a very long life. Um, uh, my family tends to live moderately long lives. They don't generally die too early, and I think I take probably better care of myself than anybody in my entire gene stock ever has. I'm healthy, I work out and all that stuff, so I'll probably live to be very, quite old. Uh, I'm not answering my own questions here. I will probably live to be very old. Now, I do look at that as a little bit of a curse because I don't want to be a disease-ridden, agony-ridden, old fart when I go. I really want quality of life, and I, I I think that if quality of life got bad enough, I would probably make sure that I didn't live to be 98 if I just started degenerating and stuff. Um, I am just really rambling.
Well, where are you from?
Well, let's see. I was born in Lakehurst, New Jersey, at the Naval Hospital uh, in that town, just yards away from where the Hindenburg met its ultimate demise. My dad was in the Navy at the time, and as soon as he got out of the Navy, he and my mom hit the road. They did not like New Jersey. Um,
So where'd you grow up?
well, I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, and mostly suburban Dayton, Ohio, cities outlying there, and was also shuttled back and forth most of my younger life to my mother's place of growing up, St. Simon's Island, Georgia, which is really what I consider my roots, my spiritual roots, if nothing else. When I think of home, I don't really key into Dayton. I think of Dayton as the place where they raised me, that's where I went to school and shit, but the island was always where I was happiest and felt like I needed to be. It was special. Slightly exotic to my Dayton, Ohio, perspective on that. And to this day, when I go to see family, it's to the island. So.
Well, tell me about your family history, your ethnic background, all that stuff. Tell me.
My family are really kind of really great and really weird people, sometimes. Um, Oh God, this is gonna sound so egotistical. The people in my family are extremely good-looking people. I mean, no, I mean, just both of my parents were extremely, handsome people, and both sets of
You were telling us about your family?
yeah, and I think I was going on about how beautiful the people in my family are. No, even both sets of grandparents were extremely attractive people, and an interesting thing, the people in my family are very sexual, very sexual. They're very body, they're very earthy people, and one of the things I love about my family is we have such a great capacity for humor. My family just loves to laugh. They love, and they have a great sense of irony, a great sense of the absurd and silly, and especially the body. I think of my dad when I think of that, because he just loves a certain nastiness, in his laughter and stuff like that. He loves a good dirty joke or something like that, and that's one of the things I really love about my family. Um, I disagree with many aspects of, some of the choices people in my family make, or personality conflicts or whatever, but I have to admit, I just really admire the fact that my family gets it, in that they really know that a big part of life should be about laughter and really having the good times and stuff, and that's one of the strong points that my family has.
Well, tie that into about your childhood. Tell about
Let me backtrack a little. I want to tell a little bit more about my family, because then I'll be able to go into the childhood thing. Now, I was just getting on just an issue on that with the laughter, but uh, as in any family, there are a lot of different personalities and that sort of thing. My family, though, tends to be incredibly provincial, I think. And that's one of my big disappointments about my family, is they so often buy into what society would dictate they should be, or how life should be lived. And I fancy that I have made it one of the guiding lights of my life to do just the opposite. I mean, I definitely walk to my own drummer. I think anybody that knows me would agree with that. And it's one of the great sadnesses of my life regarding my family, that they, to too much of a degree, they worry about what people think. or what the neighbors would think, or what society will think, or what the repercussions will be if, God forbid, you are something other than what is considered very acceptable and within the norm. But for the most part, they're very intelligent, very great, wonderful people. And there's a lot of love in my family, a lot of pain in my family, too.
And your childhood?
My childhood. On certain levels, my childhood was just great. My parents were very good providers, I felt. I always had the roof over my head. I always had the 3 square meals and snacks, lots of TV time, and clothes on my back. And as a child, I never felt that I wanted for anything at all. I really appreciated my parents for that. When I was about 15, my mom and dad got divorced. That was a really tough time, and that was probably the period for my biggest pain as a child. But it was finding out about the divorce and the information that I gleaned on the way to the finalization of the divorce that was so scary to me. But once it took place, I found I was actually happier, because for the years just before they got their divorce, even then I could see we were not a happy family. We were not a functional family. We were a family in pain, just tearing itself apart and acting very badly to each other and stuff. And I think probably the greatest thing for everybody involved in my nuclear family was when that divorce took place. I don't say that cavalierly, because I know there's a lot of pain and there's often a lot of regret about that, but looking back and with the perspective of time, I think it was the smart thing to do. My childhood, yes, I was provided for, and in that sense, things were pretty good. But on a bigger and deeper level, I really had a tough childhood. I have been tied into my gayness, my sexuality, my gay soul, my gay being from virtually my earliest memories, and always knew that I was different. And everybody around me knew as well. I mean, I've had one of my aunts tell me, "Oh God, we knew from the time you were in a cradle, that you were gay, because you were just such a big old girl, when you were a small child, and stuff." I mean, she said when I was first learning to walk and run and stuff like that, I didn't run across that yard like a robust little boy. I tinkerbelled across that yard, and I just had all those youthful giveaways, and stuff. And for my family, it was a source of embarrassment, because at that time, and given their world outlook and stuff, that was something to be ashamed of. I think more and more people now are beginning to understand the beauty that is to be had when you have a gay person in your family. There's magic in your family. There's fabulousness in your family. There's color and there's laughter, potentially. But it didn't work that way for us. Obviously, there's a lot of suspicion growing up and stuff, most of it unspoken and all. But I got a lot of negative feedback about it. Just like virtually any other kid that grows up gay in the 60s and 70s in America, there's always the negative reinforcement for gay kids, no role models or anything like that. I think for my dad it was especially tough. Well, talk about my mom first. I think for Mom, the thought of having a gay son probably scared the hell out of her. Being from her Eisenhower era, perspective on that sort of thing. But I think in a more visceral level, my mom she probably, in a subconscious way, liked having that sensitive boy near her who could love and show emotion and cry and be real near her. a son that wouldn't necessarily be daddy's boy, but one that would really understand mom and her needs and her perspectives and feel many of the same kinds of emotions as she would and stuff. And, that whole thing about gay men and their mothers, stuff like that. I think I've got the best possible world with my mom in regards to that. I know she definitely appreciates me for all my wild, colorful, gay strangeness and stuff. Still probably makes her uptight, but I think she's getting there. Now, for my dad, it was really tough, and he really acted out about it when I was a kid, and there was one of the greatest sources of my scarring, I think. And we're all wounded souls, but he just really had in his head that I was going to be the local stud, the jock, the man's man, all that stuff, and he was going to bend me to his will if it killed us both. And at times I thought it would. He made me so fucking miserable as a kid. I could see in his eyes the disappointment. I could see the love and I could see the pain. But more often than not, what I saw was his anger. I saw his anger and his resentment and his embarrassment. Because, it was obvious what I was as a kid. I had not yet learned to hide my gayness between what I think is relatively masculine exterior. And I was a great source of disappointment. And he just tried to clean that gay demon out of me, as a kid. He was my coach for Little League, he was my coach for basketball, he coached me in tennis. And it's a two-edged sword, because when I want to be and when I have to be, as an adult, I can be athletic with the best of them. I'm a bitch on the volleyball court, and I'm a great body surfer and a great swimmer, and I like being active and I like getting out there and I love to work out, and so there's a certain athleticism about me, and a lot of that came from his training. It gave me the coordination, it gave me the assurance, when I am playing sports to have a good time and to be competent. But, my God, that shit should be fun. And I mean, there were beatings and there were, throwing things and screaming and repercussions and name calling and stuff, and it was all that stuff that just kind of crushes your soul, as you're growing up, when you have, one of your parents just constantly letting you know what a disappointment you were. And it had bigger repercussions in my developing personality. I mean, I see so many of my more negative personality traits coming out of sort of that negative reinforcement, the things he would call me, things that he would say. When you're told that as a little kid, you believe it. And to this day, I still often struggle with some of those words, and stuff. And then there was school. Kids are smart. Kids work on a more visceral, basic level and stuff, and I was one of the school fags, I hadn't yet blossomed physically or anything like that, so I was, I guess I had a cute little face, because a lot of the girls thought I was just adorable and stuff like that, but basically it was pretty well known that I was gay and stuff, and you know how it is in school, especially back in those days, man. The name calling and the fights and all that stuff could be pretty tough and all. Again, a lot of the pain of not being included and always being the outsider, has really made its mark on developing me into who I am today. So I guess I just rambled like crazy, but the point being is I had a very middle class, middle American upbringing that was well provided for, and I had a lot of love around me, but at the same time, because I tend to be pretty cerebral and very heart-oriented, Um, a lot of those darker aspects of my childhood have made a big mark on me, being who I am today. So would I say that I had a good childhood? I would say I had I had a tolerable childhood.
Well, let's switch to 1996. Tell us about yourself, your work, your career. Who are you today?
Um, well, I've been told a few times that I am a Renaissance man, and you know what? I believe them. Um, Reason being is I have a lot of talents, and I'm 37 years old, and I'm just now figuring that out. You know, I'm just now discovering what my place in life is and what I need to accomplish, what I need to do, what I need to grow into, that sort of thing. Um, I do a little bit of everything right now. I I've been working in the movie industry since 1984, so it's been 12 years, and uh, was doing it as an actor primarily. In the late 80s, I started writing, and eventually the writing just took over. I'm so much happier when I'm creating art and can be my own boss. Um, and I've really come into my own as a writer, and I feel like I get so much positive reinforcement about it. People, I think, I can honestly say this, people really love my writing. I think my writing moves people, and I really think that I finally found my talent, my reason for being. I think I'm just on the edge of taking that to the next plane though, because yeah, I'm a writer, but I think in the bigger scheme of things, my talent is that I am a storyteller in the big Joseph Campbell sort of philosophical meaning of that word, you know. I like to think that I inform and teach and entertain and educate and move people based upon either my talent verbally or on the written page, or whether it's in a costume or whatever, to tell a story, to tell a joke, to tell, and that really excites me. And you know, eventually I want and have the possibility of very soon of producing and eventually directing, and that's very much who I am today. Now I'm not yet there. I love my little apartment, but I'm not up on the top of the hill right now in some fabulous mansion right now. I still have my day job. I work as a massage therapist, and love that because I'm not punching a clock, I'm not waiting tables, and you know, I'm my own boss. And at the same time, I can provide a service in which I nurture people, in which I make them feel good and heal them sometimes when I'm at my best. Another source of pride for me. I think I can run a lot of energy through my hands. And I think my energies can be, when I'm willing to go there, be quite empathic. And I think that's very important when I do body work like that. But, so in a not such a nutshell, God, am I rambling, that's sort of where I'm at. But I'm also very much about having a very recreational life, about having a very physically healthy life, an emotionally healthy life, a spiritually healthy life. A relatively private life with my core group of very close friends, and all the other turkeys out there can just do their own thing, you know. And it's very important to me to stand out. Yeah, people either get me or they don't. When they get me, they really dig me. When they don't, God, they think I am just like too totally fucking nuts or weird or psycho or whatever. But that's okay, because in either case, they notice.
Let's get personal. Are you married? Do you have a significant other?
No, I'm single. I have been for at least 4 years now, and have one or two minor close calls, but it ain't meant to be, at least not right now.
Well, tell us a little bit more. Like, for instance, what's your favorite color?
My favorite color, God, Um, it's funny, I ask all these people these questions, and I don't think I know how.
Today, what's your favorite color today?
Black. Black. I love black. I look great in black. Ooh. I love the night. I love darkness. I love shadows. I love the anonymity of the period. I'd make a great vampire. All that stuff. So black. I think black is probably my favorite color.
And your favorite food?
Anything with lots of grease and salt. Favorite food. A Jack in the Box grilled sourdough burger.
And your favorite all-time movie?
I've got like my favorite five big time, but I think if I had to pick of those five, I would have to say it's this little French film called Diva. I just fucking love that movie. Because that movie is me. I mean, it embodies so much of like the things that drive me, so much of the things that are important to me. It's just such a beautiful work of art, and the movie is about this young boy, a messenger, who falls madly in love from afar with this operatic diva, and she will not let her voice be recorded ever, because she thinks that art should be a fleeting thing for the moment, for the experience. And so no one has ever recorded her voice, and so he goes to her concert and he records her singing. And this, and different sources notice him doing this, and so he's being pursued for the tape by one source. And then accidentally, some other things come in from the side, and the tape gets mixed up, and suddenly he gets involved in a big murder scandal and conspiracy and all that stuff like that. And, it's just a very complicated story, but when he goes to meet the diva to ask her for his autograph, as he's leaving her dressing room, he steals her gown that he wore during the recital, and it becomes a big public, kind of scandal that somebody stole her gown and stuff, and all these different things happen, and all these sources come together, and what it embodies is a very beautiful and passionate and simple and innocent love story between these two people who find love from just such diametrically opposed directions and life experience, and yet they find true love, and they find that love in simply being together. And then there's all the fabulous chase scenes and all the hot photography and all that stuff, but it all works for me in a really beautiful way. But I think one of the most beautiful moments in movie making for me is in that movie when they have their first sort of evening together, and they just walk, and they walk through the streets of Paris all night long, and like about half an hour before the sun comes up, you can just see the light brightening as they pass in front of the Eiffel Tower, and that beautiful music from the soundtrack is playing, and they're just walking together, and sometimes not even talking, not even looking at each other, and yet they are so connected. And it's all right there on film. And that's what I want to be able to do. That's what I want to create.
What is your favorite song?
A song by Talk Talk. It's called It's My Life. And I think it's definitely a Rebels song. And it's good to dance to, too. but the refrain of the song is, it's my life. And, the feeling of that song is like, it works for me, and if it doesn't work for you, then get lost.
Does it bring back any particular memories or feelings?
Well, I mean, some of the greatest, nights out, I've heard that song, and boy, I've got to just hit that dance floor and all. But not so much memories, but I listen to those words, and I listen to that refrain and that great kind of thumping disco beat and shit, and I'm there. I love that song.
Well, you're very career-oriented, but do you have any hobbies?
Yeah, I read. I love to read. My God, I love getting lost in that alternate world. I used to read just shitloads of fiction. I mean, and I do love fiction. I think the state of fiction in contemporary society is just atrocious right now. Nonfiction seems to be where publishing is at, and I'm even reading more nonfiction these days, and actually beginning to enjoy it. But I read a lot. I work out. I'm incredibly vain and narcissistic, so that's important to me. But with balance, it's not my only validation in life. So it's a very healthy hobby.
Tell us your favorite joke.
My favorite joke. Actually, my favorite joke, you kind of had to be there because because I was watching TV and I was watching the old Hollywood squares, and it was back in the days when Paul Lynde was the center square, and I have never laughed so hard in my life. So basically, the joke is Peter Marshall says to Paul Lynde. Peter Marshall sounds like a security guard in a gay bar. He says, Paul, for the X, or for the square, when a man falls overboard, people yell, man overboard. What do you yell when a woman falls overboard? Paul Lynde thinks to himself for a second. He goes, full speed ahead. But there's my second favorite joke because he also told it, and it was, okay, Paul, for the X. Why do motorcycle gang members wear leather? And he thinks for a second, and he goes, because chiffon wrinkles. I loved him. Somebody should really do, like, a collection of Paul Lynde one-liners from that show. I mean, he had some great ones. And when I told the first joke, or when he said that first joke, I thought the entire, cast of pseudo-stars up there on that show were going to die. I thought, Phyllis Diller was going to pee her pants, and Anita Gillette was going to fall off her chair, and, Peter Marshall, I think, did, and the audience, it was probably the longest laugh that show ever got. It was too funny.
Let's take a big turn. What do you like most about your body?
My butt. I'm really proud of my butt. My entire life, even when I was a skinny, geeky, kind of pre-working out kid in my teens and shit, girls used to talk about what a cute butt I had. And I just got real proud of it really early. And so they may not like me coming, but a lot of people like me going. And I like to flaunt it, I like to show it off, and it's a big source of my validation.
What do you dislike most about your body?
My arms. I don't like my arms. Especially my elbows. I got these really pointy elbows and shit. And they really work for me in a fight, but I don't know, they're just kind of weird. Weird elbows.
Okay. What is your best quality?
I think my best quality. It amazes me that I ask these people all the time these questions, and I haven't yet got my little rote list of answers. I haven't really thought about this stuff. My best quality. Well, I think because when I say my best quality, I think the reason I think it's my best quality is because it feeds into so many of my other good qualities. But I think it's my penchant for introspection. Life is one big question for me and stuff, and my life is a very big question for me. And yet, part of those questions involved, other people and responsibility and ethics and morality and integrity and all that stuff. And so, obviously, if those kinds of questions are so important to me, and I have any kind of soul whatsoever, then it feeds into other aspects of my life. So I think that I used the brain that God gave me, and I used the heart and the sensitivity that God gave me. And so for that reason, I think that my introspection has taught me empathy, towards others. It's taught me to dig deeper and not live life on a shallow couch potato kind of way. Yeah, I think it's the fact that I used the brain that God gave me. And God, that for some reason that sounds so fucking like egotistical or something, but yeah, I should say like the fact that I feed starving children or like, save the whales or something, but I think my best quality, yeah, it's my introspection, because it makes me think about just how to get through life and do it on a big way. I think I live my life in a big way, and I think those around me who can share the joy really get the payoff because of that. So yeah, introspection.
Okay, so what is your worst quality?
It would probably be a real tie between laziness and selfishness. It can so be all about me all the time. I do tend to be lazy. I'm not nearly as productive as I should be, and so much of my life is what it is because I just don't want to have to punch a clock or be somewhere when I don't want to have to be there, or get up when I don't feel like getting up, and yada. So yeah, laziness would have something to do with it, or yeah, selfishness. I mean, it has been a major drive for me in my adult life to learn, not really to learn to give, because I love to give and I do it well, but to not make such an issue of it, but to be a giving person from the very core of my being. I think I've gotten pretty good about that. I think my friends would agree with that, and I think my loved ones would agree that I can give, and that I give naturally and stuff like that. But it didn't come naturally. I mean, I've really had to, I think I've really had to train myself to be that. Yeah, I've just always felt incredibly selfish in my life and stuff, and so that's probably my worst quality.
What is your biggest fear?
Not to have accomplished the things that I was meant to accomplish on this plane, in this life. I really believe that the universe, or God, or whatever you want to call it, put me here to do some things. And it wasn't to procreate and have kids and carry on the gene pool. It was to bring more to society. It was to make people think. It was to bring joy to people. It was to expand my knowledge, my understanding, and my sensitivity and stuff. And I just cannot approach life in a cavalier way, just couch potatoing my life away. It's my big fear is that I will do that, and then I'll waste it on nothingness. And my big fear is that I will eventually go to my grave, and I will not have put back into existence what I brought out of it. That scares me.
Are you a happy person?
This would be really interesting. I'd love to hear what people are going to say if and when anybody ever sees or hears this. Am I a happy person? Fundamentally, by nature, no. I'm not. I have a great capacity for joy, and I have great capacity for happiness, but I think genetically, I mean, right down to the core of my being, I'm brooding and maybe just a little tiny bit melancholy. and definitely neurotic. Very definitely neurotic. So by nature, no, I'm not a happy person. But yes, I have created a happy life. Does that make any sense whatsoever? I mean, by nature, no, I'm not. I'm not given towards just being happy. I'm just not happy by nature. But in the sense that, do I have a good life, and do I have great times, and and for the most part, am I on an upbeat plane? Definitely. But it's, again, that's something I've had to teach myself and create for myself.
What are you most thankful for?
Oh God, again, this is gonna sound so fucking like about me, and stuff, but it's so funny because I ask people this question, and so often they go, my friends, my family, my husband, whatever, yada da da da. But once again, it's about me. I'm really thankful for. I'm really thankful for all the gifts that I've been given, in my life. I, I like to think that I'm an attractive, very attractive, sexy, intelligent, talented, person who makes the most possible use of all those things, and stuff, and does not waste it. And I just, sometimes when I'm feeling incredibly humble in the face of God or the universe and stuff, I just often go, how dare I not be happy? How dare I worry about the fact that rent is going to be late or whatever and stuff like that? God, I've got it all. I've got my health. I've got, all these other gifts, and stuff, and that, God has given me. It's given me a family that loves me. It's given me a wonderful lifestyle. It's given me the potential to I'm pretty sure, have my dreams fulfilled in career and lifestyle and stuff, and traveling, all that stuff. I have such a great life. How dare I get pissed because I can't go out and buy that sports car I want? How dare I get pissed because I can't fly first class and shit? I have got so many fucking gifts in my life. I've got great friends. I've got incredibly loving friends. I've got a great sex life. I've got it all. I really do. I've got, no, I don't have it all, but I have it all. So that's what I'm thankful for.
How do you believe you are generally perceived by others?
I'm not sure I believe there is any general perception of me. Because I'm a person of such extremes, that people either get me or they don't. So I think the opinions on me are very widely out there. I think, I, th- I think anybody who gets to know, most people who get to know me, even in an inkling, understand that I'm pretty special, and I'm a great guy, and one attractive motherfucker. But there are a lot of people, because I act out so often, they just don't get it, and I mean, and they interpret that their own ways. They either see me as too wild, or they see me as too egotistical, or they see me as a total wannabe. So I'm sure some people out there interpret me and the way I live my life and how out there I can be as just my way of making my mark, and they're like, look at him, he's so fucking tired, and all this kind of shit. But I don't believe there's a general perception. It's polarized. People either get it and really dig me, or they don't get it and they think I am just like, just too fucking weird for words. But that's okay, because in either case they notice. I have noticed that it's very rare that I disappear in the crowd, and stuff. So positive or negative, they're noticing. So.
If you could be anyone else in the world, who would it be?
Pamela Anderson Lee. I worship the ground she walks on. She rules. She is my God. She is everything. Want to know why? It's not going to be Gandhi. It is not going to be, some great thinker or some, whatever. I mean, it's Pamela Anderson Lee. You know why? Because whether they'll admit it or not, every fucking woman in the world wants to be her, and every man in the world wants to be in her. Unless it's a man who wants to also be her. I mean, she's it. She's this gorgeous fucking Amazon of a woman. She's got it all. She's got the bleach blonde hair and the bright red lips and the fucking makeup for days and the fake tits that look great in the black leather bustier. And she's barbed wire, man. She rules. She is gorgeous. She is everything. She's dumb as a post. She's got no talent whatsoever, and she's got a fucking huge career. I mean, she has got it all. If I had to be anybody else in the world, I'd want to be Pamela Anderson Lee without the monthly menstrual cycle, but I would be Pamela Anderson Lee. Ooh, I mean, I aspire to her. When I do drag, I mean, I am just throwing that Pamela Anderson Lee energy. Pamela Anderson Lee.
All right, are you calmed down?
Yeah.
All right. Now, if you could be anything else in the world, what would it be? Not a person, but something else.
God, people have come up with such great answers on this one, and I would probably be, if I had a choice, I would probably be some really majestic bird of prey. Like an eagle or something like that. I would just love to have the ability to fly, like I do in my dreams. To have such incredibly sharp vision, to be able to see such distant horizons and with such sharp focus, my prey. Probably an eagle.
Where's your favorite place on Earth?
Venice, Italy. I love Venice. I have this weird thing about like reincarnation. I'm not sure if we really do, in fact, reincarnate in physical bodies, over and over again on this planet, that sort of thing. But if we do, I did live there once. When someone very dear to me took me there once, I knew that city like the back of my hand. And that's not an easy city to say that about. If you can get lost in any city, it's in Venice. And I had no trouble. I always knew where I was.
What were you saying about Venice?
I can't remember, to be perfectly honest. But I mean, I never could get lost there. So often I would be somewhere and completely recognize where I was at. That city hasn't changed much over the centuries, and I'm telling you, I've been there before in a big way. And it is so fucking beautiful. I mean, it's like, I can't believe something that beautiful really exists on this planet. It's like a magic fairy tale kingdom. And when I was there, I felt like every time I turned a corner, I was going to come to a turnstile and have somebody go, "Welcome to the Venice ride." I mean, it's just a city I'm just determined to winter in one of these days.
What makes you laugh, Chris?
I love absurdities. The best humor to me is absurd humor. I have a real taste for irony and satire and all this. Everything makes me laugh. That's one of the things I think I do well, is writing good comedy. Yeah, I mean, the absurdity of a man in a dress. I mean, I find that too fucking funny. The Monty Python team, when they would do drag, I used to just scream. And the kids in the hall, when they do their, women stuff. I mean, there's nothing funnier. Magic is created when a man is in a dress, and it has nothing to do with trying to be a woman. It's all, to me, it's always satire. It's always statement. You know, I've done drag a few times in my life and stuff, and it's always about laughs. You know, it's always about laughs, and you know, it's nothing. It has nothing to do with you know, trying to be something other than what I am outside of, you know. Well, yeah, I'm getting in touch with my feminine side definitely, but it's not. It's not the goal. It's not the point. The point is to just rock people's worlds. Um, what else makes me laugh? Uh, yeah, we'll leave it at that. You know, absurdities.
What makes you cry?
Everything. Everything makes me cry. I am the biggest fucking baby. I always have been, always will be. I will cry at the drop of a hat. For some reason, it doesn't seem to happen so much anymore. Oh God, when I was younger, oh my God, I mean, I would just boo, and used to be so embarrassed about it, you know, because I mean, really bought into the whole thing. You know, people should not see a man cry, you know, and stuff. But I'll cry anything. I'll cry at a sappy scene in a movie. I'll cry when I watch the news and something really horrifying has happened to somebody. Um, I'll cry, you know, when I see two people parting, you know, and I can see it's hurting them. Um, you know, that, you know, everything makes me cry.
Do you consider yourself a spiritual or religious person?
Duh. I mean, why is that question on that interview? Oh yeah, I am. I'm real gun shy about religion. No, I'm not a religious person whatsoever. But am I spiritually oriented? Like, sometimes I just wish I weren't so spiritually oriented because sometimes, I mean, God, I'm so fucking heavy sometimes. You know, I just need to lighten up because. But you know, fundamentally, genetically, I am a spiritual person. I mean, everything I do in life ties in with my belief systems as a spirit-filled entity. Um, yeah, to that question.
Well, do you believe in God?
Yeah, whatever the fuck that is. Um, you know, who is he, she, or it? I haven't the foggiest fucking idea, and trust me, I've done a lot of studying on this subject. I've read everything in sight. I have, you know, I've done everything from fundamentalist Christianity to fucking drinking ayahuasca in the Amazon and having my body dissolve and flying with the angels and the extraterrestrials. I've done the Marianne Williamson thing. I've done, you name it, I've done it. And brought something great with me on every step of the journey. Learned some really tough lessons, especially with the fundamentalist Christianity and its intolerance for not just, you know, things in general, but for just thought processes. You know, if you wield from the rigid structure of what we say will get you into heaven, you know, then you're a lost soul. And I mean, obviously, really got hurt when I spent my years in that. But yeah, very, very spiritually oriented, and it shows, I think, in my life. Sometimes hypocritically so, but it shows in my life.
What is love?
Love is sacrifice. Love is sacrifice. To me, it is the only even semi-dependable barometer of what love is, and if love is really there. It's a word so cheaply used today, but it's sacrifice from its loosest possible form, meaning compromise, to sacrifice of all things, sacrifice of your life, sacrifice of your very being. I I've heard so many definitions of what love is, and they're all right. But to me, love without giving until it hurts just ain't love. It's just a glorified form of affection.
Are you, in a romantic sense, a relationship-oriented person?
I don't have the foggiest fucking idea, to be perfectly honest. It's funny. I've asked a lot of people this question, and generally they say yes. Generally they say yes. And you know what? I'm beginning to wonder if I am or not. I do know that I'm an incredibly passionate person. And I'm an incredible romantic when I can be. When I'm given half a reason to be. God, I can be just so schmaltzy in my romanticism and all that stuff. But I don't go there often. I mean, I haven't really had a good, strong relationship in 4 years. And even that one I don't think was my idea of a really great relationship. And so I wonder, is it like that, the universe is telling me, no, you've got other things you need to do, rather than be distracted by all the commitments of a relationship? Or is it just that maybe I'm not a relationship-oriented person? Because I think on paper, I'm not a bad commodity. I think, you could do worse. I'm not bad looking. I'm smart. I'm intelligent. I'm compassionate. It's like blah, blah, blah. I think I'm good and bad, and stuff like that. But it just doesn't go there that often. Often because I just will not, I will just not get close to people in that regard. I will not make that commitment without really being committed to it. And I meet so few people that really, I think, are deserving. And occasionally, and sometimes, on those occasions when I think, ooh, boy, would I like to date this one, and they don't return those same affections. That, who knows? Maybe that's just the curse we of the urban life of the '90s and the gay West Hollywood lifestyle, deal with. Maybe that's just reality. But I'm beginning to suspect, and I've been accused of this once or twice, but I never really believed it. But I have a feeling that I just do kind of like keep people away. I like the idea of being in a relationship very much. I mean, God, I get so tired of one-night stands and anonymous sex and, sex clubs and orgies and all that stuff, and would love to have, just a beautiful, loving, MGM movie musical kind of, love with somebody. But it just doesn't appear in my life. And I think I'm going to have to start taking a certain amount of responsibility for that. There's another point to this I definitely wanted to bring up, and I'm forgetting it now. Oh, yeah. I've got... maybe this is part of the problem, and part of the reason that I do kind of often say no to people when they go in that direction with me. I like to think I'm an intelligent, objective person, but one of the few things I just don't want to give up in my life is the big time romantic inside me. And for that reason, I've got a bitch of a case of the Prince Charming syndrome. I mean, to me, it's like just not fucking worth it if he just doesn't fucking just rock my world, and if he doesn't make me feel like he just really wants to be with me. And I really want to be with him. And it's got to, yeah, of course it's got, for me especially, it's got to really work on a sexual level and stuff like that. But I want to be with somebody who, you know, is like my ally and we're excited by each other on like a lot of different planes. And I want him to be a little bit of a trophy too, you know. I don't think I worked so hard to develop this, you know, this person and stuff like that, to have just some schlep here just because he's there. You know, just because he, you know, he went there and okay, it's security and it's like, okay, he's there. And I did that in my last relationship and it was a big mistake. I don't want to make that mistake again. And although sometimes I occasionally get really down about, you know, just not having that, and, you know, I think more often than not, I would rather just not deal with it than have the headaches of being in a relationship that to me is just not exciting. And on that note, you know, I want to, like, you know, footnote this by saying, you know, it's just like, I don't want to be what I see so many of my friends doing, or being, you know, it's like, or yeah, doing. I don't want to do what I see people doing. It's like, especially in this West Hollywood thing, people, you know, it's like they jump from boyfriend to boyfriend to boyfriend to boyfriend, you know, and you know, they're with somebody and they're really hot for them and they're together for a few months, maybe. You know, and it's like, this is my new boyfriend, and stuff like that. Next time you talk to him, it's like, you know. And then a few weeks or a month or 2 or 3 or a year later, you know, there's some other guy, you know, and stuff like that. And it's like, they're hot and heavy for a while, and then they move on. It's like, God, how can people do that? You know, how can they take, you know, intimacy so shallowly? I would rather have no intimacy. I'd rather go to the vortex. I'd rather like do a sex club or you know, an anonymous pickup and just get it over with and have a quick fix of passion and sexuality and fucking and then just move on rather than sort of feed my insecurities, feed the insecure notion that this person is going to make me happy. And I think that's what people do. Is they feel like that other person is going to fulfill them and make them finally a happy person. That's not going to happen. And the only way being in a relationship is going to work for me, number one, is obviously I'm going to have to be happy with myself, and number two, we're going to have to mesh in a really beautiful way. And we're going to have to both be willing to obviously compromise and do all that work that obviously goes into a relationship. But there has to be sort of a natural kind of fitting together of the interlocking parts, not just on the physical level. And it's so rare that I meet anybody that, from my end, that would work with. And, you know, given that very small pool of fish, there aren't too many that are going to return that, you know. So, I think the idealistic me says, yes, I would love to have a great love affair. I'd love to have an epic love affair. But I think in answer to that question, I may have to deal with the ugly reality that maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm not a relationship-oriented person.
Who, Christopher, was the love of your life?
His name was Scott Tretherick. I was 23 and he was 28. He's probably the only really great love of my life. The minute we made eye contact, we were in love. The minute we made eye contact, I was so stunned by his beauty. And he was smitten with me. And we were both very immature, and we had our issues, and we had a lot of growing up to do, and our lives were just eventually going to go in a different direction. But to this day, I still look back on him, and when I look at him, I know what it is that I'm looking for in my next great love, if I ever am lucky enough to have anything that makes me so happy as I had with him.
What ended it?
We were children. Guys in their 20s, that whole thing. I could have stayed with him for a long time, but I moved here in '84. When we met, I was living in Phoenix, he was living in Sacramento. We had a long-distance affair that was just fantastic. God, was it exciting, and yes, we missed each other during those long periods apart, but we had to work, especially at that age, and we were both broke all the time, so when we did get together, man, we had to work to get together. We had to look forward to it, and it was exciting, and we couldn't take each other for granted and stuff. And, because I was an actor, I had to move to LA, and, he wanted to be with me, so he moved to LA. Well, LA was just not the town for him. He just could not thrive here. And it made him incredibly unhappy and neurotic, and his soul just shriveled here. And a very short time after we both moved here, he just basically went through freak mode. And one morning I woke up in bed with him, and I could tell something had changed, and he looked at me and said, "I don't think I want to be together anymore." And typical of me, I didn't make a big scene or anything like that right at the moment, but I did lay it on the line. And I said, "Well, think real fast if you really mean that, because if I walk out that door, then I won't come back. If you tell me that, it's over, don't call me next week and say I was having a bad day, because I'm going to go home and I'll probably cry and I'll probably hurt really bad, but it will also be the shutting of a door for me." That's exactly what I said to him. And I said, "So make sure that's what you want." And I said, "Is that what you want?" And he said, "Yeah." And so I went home and cried. And I shut the door. And God damn it, 5 weeks later, I was at the Revolver, and I heard this voice behind me, "Hey!" And I turned around and I looked, and it was him standing there just being Scott. And he wouldn't leave my side the whole night. And as I was leaving the club, not with him, he followed me outside, and he said, "Look, I made a mistake. I want to get back together." And there was just no way. There's just no way. Maybe I should have just swallowed my pride. Maybe I should have just loved him a little bit more. But I saw it as my self-esteem being on the line, and I couldn't let him rule over my life. Oh God, maybe it was a mistake. Maybe I should have allowed him his freak out. But I told him no, and he pursued me. He spent 6 months. I mean, he was there, and he pursued it, and I just kept saying, no, this isn't going to happen. And finally, he just forced me to give him a chance. And you know what? I gave him that chance, and I made his life hell. I got even with him. I was such a vindictive, evil little bastard. I treated him like such shit, and until he finally cracked, and he couldn't handle it anymore. And he moved out of LA, and moved out back to Sacramento, and there was a period of bad feelings. And I really abused him. I was very vindictive, which I can be. And yet, eventually those wounds healed, and we became very close, dear friends from a very long distance. We don't talk very often, but we still do occasionally, and we love each other very much. That's how it ended.
Do you consider people basically good or basically evil?
It's really strange that I even put that question in the thing, because I guess I never really thought about it before. It just seemed like an obvious question for this interview, but when I think about it, I think we're neither. It's a yin and yang kind of thing. We are the very embodiment of a good and evil and everything in between, and we vacillate between things that make up what we define as both. I like to think that we're swinging slightly towards the light. I like to think that we are an evolving species, but we do have some major setbacks regularly throughout our history that would lead me to believe otherwise. But technological growth does not necessarily indicate growth in bigger and deeper ways. So who knows?
Well, we've already touched on this, but maybe you could elaborate on it. Do you think that you are capable of hatred?
Why do I feel like I know these questions when I'm asking people these things, and then I get put on the line here, and it's a hard one to answer. Hatred. Pure, unadulterated, unfiltered, pure hatred. I'm going to say yes. I think I'm capable of that, because my emotions are capable of running the gambit in very extreme ways. I'm not sure what the circumstances would be. I have no idea. Obviously, it would have to be just, but I get the feeling, yeah. I get the feeling, yeah. I think if I were a Jew in the Nazi concentration camps and I survived that experience, I would know hatred. I would know hatred on a level that the Ku Klux Klan or any Nazi or any hate monger would not even begin to understand. Yeah, I think that sense of bitterness would create some pretty pure hatred in me. Yeah.
Where do you feel humanity is going? Are we evolving, or are we preparing to destroy ourselves? Are you optimistic or pessimistic about mankind's future?
Basically, I'm optimistic. Obviously there's just so much darkness in the world today, and it's pervasive everywhere you look. But I believe that the universe, that this existence has purpose. And if I'm not careful, I'll get on to a thought train on this one, and I will pontificate for the next 3 hours. But I believe that we are the embodiment, the reflection of God. We are facets of God, and I believe that as we grow, we bring growth to that thing we call God. Obviously, I cannot think of God as God Father of the Judeo-Christian Islamic kind of, cultures. I see God as a dynamic and growing thing, and we are the embodiment of whatever that thing is. And as we go through our evolving pains, our growing pains, we bring fullness to that thing we call God. I have no idea what it is, but it is, God is a dynamic thing. And all of this, all of this is part of his structure. And he is going through his growing, or it is going through its growing pains. So, and I like to think that it is on an upward moving journey. And yet it will see the blackest of nights in the process. But the end result, whatever it will be the only word I can think of is perfection. Define perfection in this context, but I think we're going to get there. So yeah, I'm optimistic.
What happens to us when we die?
I don't know. I think the closest. I think the Buddhist thought on that is the closest. Well, no, never mind. Change that. I believe that. I do believe that our soul, our spirit, goes on to another plane. We reincarnate, but I'm not sure I necessarily believe that we reincarnate on this plane in another body or in another form. But I do sort of believe that it works in much the same karmic way. I believe that when we die, the essence that is us moves on to the next level of learning or being. And whatever we do in this life, it's carried on into that next one. And what you leave with out of this life is your baggage for the next one. Now, whatever that next plane is, I have no idea. Whether we come back and we just fill another shell on this plane, I don't know. But we go, I really fundamentally believe that consciousness is an infinite thing. I do not think you can kill consciousness. I believe that we are eternal, immortal beings. And we go on to something else, and I believe it is the next process of learning. If you've created shit in your life here, you're going to have a lot of shit to deal with in the next one, magnified. If you put more back into the universe, more positive and good things, you're going to have that heaped upon you in the next one as well. And it would, but we never get a vacation. There is no heaven. You know, we don't go to a place to play our harps and look down on mankind from the clouds. It's an ongoing working process, and we make of it what we will. And some of us had a lot of fun in the process.
Didn't you had a great personal loss recently? Didn't you communicate with somebody who had gone on the other side?
Oh, God. Yeah. What time is it?
11:15.
Oh my God, I got this client coming in 15 minutes. Yeah. And this one, this one threw me for a loop. My friend Ed died. And God, it is so strange because usually when my friends die, especially of AIDS, I mean, I believe that, we are infinite beings and stuff like that. So yes, I get upset, and yes, I mourn and I cry and I feel the pain of their loss and stuff like that. But usually at the same time, I'm able to balance that by thinking, okay, well, I'm going to be on that side of the door eventually too, and I will be experiencing them in some way on the other side. So they're not gone forever for me, and to a certain degree, I can rejoice in the fact that I will see them or be with them in spirit in some way again. But, death usually does not devastate me. And losing him really devastated me. And I think it was because we had had an interesting friendship that grew at us in some very weird ways. And just in the last year or so, we got very close in a very private way. I did not share his group of friends. He did not share many of my group of friends, but one-on-one, we were really great together. We had a wonderful time, and we were sincerely very wonderful, good, happy friends who really appreciated each other. And he confided in me things that I know he told virtually no other person in his life. And he had even prophesied his death to me. And I had asked around when he died if he had talked to anybody else about it. But he pulled me aside one day and told me that he thought he was going to die in about a month. And he died about a month later, very suddenly. And when he died, I made the mistake of not running with my gut feeling and rushing down to the hospital to have that last opportunity to hold his hand and say, I love you and stuff. I was led to believe that he probably wasn't going to die. But I should have just run down there and do that. So when he did die, I was very upset because, number one, he prophesied this death, and that kind of threw me. I mean, God, there was a lot of magic involved with that. And number two, I didn't get to say goodbye, and I had the opportunity, and it just hurt. And three, it was just bad timing. It was just really bad timing. I had a lot going on at that time, and it just threw me for a loop. So I suffered a lot, and I really hurt myself a lot. I got into a lot of heavy, bad, abusive, self-abusive drug use for a period of time. And eventually came out of it, and so I went to this thing, Burning Man, up in the desert, and while I'm out there on the last night of the event, and the big statue of the man is burning and stuff, and I'm out there partying with my friends in psychedelic mode. I'd taken mushrooms and I had ecstasy and stuff, so I dropped the barriers of, you know, this reality and stuff, and suddenly the doors were wide open, but I was still there with my friends in the crowd, and suddenly it all disappeared. It was just me and the Burning Man. And, you know, the Burning Man has always represented transition to me, you know, the ending of certain things and the beginning of new and stuff. And I heard Ed's voice, and he said, "Hey," just the way he always did. And I didn't even get into this big, like, "Ed, is that you?" kind of thing. It was just like, boom. I was like, "You're here." You're here. And he goes, "Yeah." And we had a conversation, and he said, "I want to thank you for hurting as much as you did about my death. I was very flattered by that. And I appreciated your love. I still do. And you know that, you know, you have mine. But I just want you to know that I waited until this time to talk to you, for you to hear my voice, because I knew how important this time and this event was for you." And he goes, "You're right. It is a transition. It is a period of transition. And what I just went through was my transition. And you're kind of right about what it's all about on the other side of the door. I mean, I'm on a journey. And guess what? It's kind of great. So don't worry about me. Don't worry about me. And you'll be seeing me again eventually." And I knew fundamentally, boom, that was not coming from within me. That was him. I believe that. I believe that like I believe this table is right here in front of me. And I was able to say goodbye. And he made it clear that he would have occasionally check in. And that brought happiness back into my life again, because I'd lost it for a while. So here's to Ed.
Are you yourself? Do you fear death?
No, I don't fear death. Like most people who discuss this sort of thing, I fear the process, especially if it's a painful, ugly, messy, lingering process. No, I don't fear death itself, because these things I've just said about death and the transition, I really believe them fundamentally and wholeheartedly. So no, but I do fear the process, and God knows if I had to walk to my death, you know, to the firing squad or to the execution chamber or something, I would not go stoically. I can't see myself capable of that. I would be a screamer. I mean, I'd go kicking and screaming. I mean, I would just be so terrified at the inevitability and the suddenness of it, and the just, you know, horror of just, you know, staring through that big black doorway, you know, and not seeing what's on the other side, and have no idea what's coming. I mean, it would, my God, you know, does your soul scream in agony as it is pulled out of its body? I mean, you know, all that shit would be just terrifying to me. But, you know, death itself, no. Yeah.
Who do you love the most, or who is the most important to you?
Oh, God. Probably my kitty, Toker. Because men, they come and go. Family, they are what they are sometimes. Friends, how many lifelong friends do I have? but she is always there. She is my daughter. She is my responsibility, and she is my everything. You know, I love her. I love my best friend Patrick. He's probably the best friend I've ever had. The most sincere and loving friend that I've ever had. I don't feel like some of my other very good friends that after one big fight we would not be friends anymore. You know, I feel like we'll probably be friends for the rest of our lives. I hope so.
Tell me about your happiest moment of your whole life.
Oh God, this client is going to be here. We're going to be sitting here doing this.
Welcome. This is good tape here.
The happiest moment of my life, God, I'll never forget this moment. When I was a young actor, I was still living in Phoenix, Arizona, and I did a community theater production of Boys in the Band. This is like 1982 or 83. I played Larry, one of the two lovers in the show. And Larry was, I think, the slightly younger of the two, and he was the one that had a hard time making commitment and all this stuff like that, and yada. And the way that production had been up, it wasn't as bitchy and evil and awful as that show can often be. There was a lot of, like, it was directed in a really brilliant way so that the audience really rooted for these characters. And anyway, I think it was opening night. No, it was the second night. Opening night was on Thursday, so this was on a Friday, and just coincidentally, it was the most important night to me because everybody I knew was in the audience that Friday night, and the night before, we just mopped up that theater. I mean, we just chewed up the scenery and stuff, and it went really well, and it felt good. And this Friday night, everybody I knew, all my close friends, and more than a few people who hated my guts, and the critics, and all this shit. It was just like everybody in gay Phoenix was there that night, and the show felt to me like lead. It's my client.
To be continued.
Okay, why don't we go?
All right, now you were telling me about Boys in the Band, and everybody was in the audience.
I was on a roll on this one. We got interrupted. Where did I leave off? Oh, okay. So the night before the opening night, we owned it, man. We knew we were hot and we were gonna have a hit on our hands. I mean, oh my God. Then this Friday night, the show. I had all these people out in the audience. It was important to me that this thing fly, and it felt like lead. I mean. I felt like the pacing was slow. It felt like we just didn't have the magic going, and we weren't getting the feedback from the audience that the previous night audience had given us. We weren't getting the big laughs and all this kind of shit. And I was interpreting that as they were just out there with their arms folded, just like, and stuff. And I was bitter. I was so upset. And I was like, fuck, I mean, it was the first opportunity I had in Phoenix, and with all of these friends who had become good friends, to show that I was good at something, and to show myself that I was good at something. And I just had a lot at stake emotionally on this one, and it just wasn't flying, and stuff. And I went back during the intermission and backstage and was just like, oh fuck, I just dread the curtain call, and having to face my friends and stuff, because it just isn't working tonight and stuff. And we went back out for the second act, and still it just wasn't really working. But then, at least as I interpreted it, but then about halfway through the second act, all of a sudden I got the feeling that they weren't being quiet out in the audience because they weren't enjoying it. They were just a really intense audience, and they were like really listening. I mean, really listening and really there. And suddenly you could just sort of feel the intensity permeating, and I suddenly realized that night, gay Phoenix was out there in that audience. And I think what it was that you had the sense of community out there in that audience, and it was like we were speaking to and for them. And so they were just there with it. They were part of the play. So the fact that there were, a lot of the laughter wasn't coming and stuff just wasn't, it wasn't important. It was a different kind of enjoyable experience they were having. And the character that I play and the lover of this character, as the show goes on, the big thing is they're playing a game and you have to call the one person in your life who you love. And nobody knows who the hell anybody's going to call. Well, with these two lovers, you're not too sure who's going to say what. Well, my character Larry tells his lover to go in the bedroom, and he picks up the phone, and he calls the lover in the bedroom, and it was really weird. It was one of those things where suddenly I understood method acting because I got really real. I was kind of pissed at that point too, because I was thinking this isn't really working, and I thought, fuck it, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to be it. I'm not going to act it. I'm going to be it. And I sat there on the sofa, downstage center and stuff, and he was over on the side in the bedroom area of the stage and shit. And that intense moment of the play, comes when they look at each other between the doorway of the two rooms. And my character, Larry, I turned and looked at this guy. And the words didn't come out of my mouth. All I could do was go. Not a sound came out of my voice, and that was not affectation. It just was the realness of the moment. And there was this silence for like 1 second or 2 seconds, and then I heard this guy in the audience go, "Yes!" like that, and the entire theater erupted into this thunderous applause, and they stood and they gave us a standing ovation because they wanted it to happen, and we created that for them. And we sat there, me and this actor, we realized we'd been so successful, in making this audience root for us and believe in us and want us to work out and stuff. And it just all came together, my craft and and all that stuff and all that stuff. And in one of those great, like stage moments and stuff like that, I'm looking at him off the stage, but you're getting this thunderous applause. You can't just go on with the scene. You gotta wait for the applause to die down. So you do that thing, and I just kind of looked at him and dropped the phone in my lap, and I just kind of turned and got in this reflective kind of thing, But as I turned, I was facing out towards the audience, and at that moment, it was weird. I hadn't seen anybody out there in the audience all night. Lights are in your eyes and stuff like that. But for some reason, my eyes focused, and there was everybody I knew, like 6 or 7 rows back, right in the middle and stuff like that, and they were beaming, and they were just like, yes, yes. They were so fucking happy for me, and they were so fucking impressed, and they were so fucking everything, and I was like, you could have fucking dropped a brick in my head at that moment, and I would have just been, okay, I've lived, I'm happy. Figures the phone.
All right, Christopher. Now that you've told us one of the most happiest moments in your life, why don't you tell us about the saddest?
I always wonder why people have such a hard time with some of these questions, and again, there's one. Saddest moment in my life. It would either be probably as a child. I had this one really great. He was probably the first best friend I ever had. He was just a great kid. We really loved each other a lot. At that age you don't tell each other that stuff, but we did. We were like brothers, and we lived in this little pig farming community called Easton, Ohio for a couple of years and stuff, and he was like just one of my few friends there because we were living in a rural area, there weren't a lot of kids around. But when we moved back into the Dayton area, very shortly after we moved back, I think just a couple of months after we moved back, he got hit by a car and was just mangled, and died, and my mom got the call from his parents, and my parents and his parents were very good friends as well. And my mom being, the emotional basket case that she is anyway, she just went ballistic. I mean, she was hysterical, and came running into my bedroom and screaming bloody murder, mascara, running hair, Bride of Frankenstein time. Came in and said, you know, Andy's dead, but she screamed it, it was not one of those, honey, I've got bad news, or, let's talk about death, kind of prepping me for the thing. My mother came in like a hysterical vampire, and stuff, and screamed, Andy's dead. And, at that age, you have no perspective. I was only like maybe 10, 9 or 10 years old. And at that age, you have no perspective on that. Death is, such a scary thing. And that is the first agony I ever felt, ever. I was beyond pain. And then the funeral was the first time I ever saw an adult man cry. I saw his father. His father walked up to me and shook my hand, and it was too much for him looking at me, because I was his son's best friend, and he was sort of okay, and he reached out and he shook my hand and he said, "Andy misses you," and he started crying, and that was a tough one. Oh my God, it was that awful. I still miss him, and it's amazing. Those things stick with you your entire life. There's, there's one other. Since I'm sitting here just on a roll, I might as well just run with it. And actually, I think that one was like, sad in the big death kind of way, and stuff, a lot of big emotions and stuff like that. But I think probably the fundamental sad moment of my life and stuff came when I was a teenager. Actually, I think I was still in junior high. And, as I said earlier in the interview and stuff, friends were really tough for me to come by in school and stuff. That whole gay thing, and I was always the school fag, and so if you aspired to any kind of coolness, you didn't hang around with the school fag. And so I was a real loner, and I think a major part of the reason I'm a loner as an adult, to a certain degree, and keep a very small core group of friends, is, because, as a kid, I spent virtually all my time alone. My brother and I were not real close as siblings, and I spent my entire childhood, like fishing in the creeks and, scavenging through the woods looking for creepy crawlies and stuff, and, reading and all that stuff. And yet, like any kid, I wanted my friends, I wanted people to be with and my clique and all that stuff, and I didn't have one. And when we moved to Centerville, there was this one group of kids that were in the band, we all played musical instruments and stuff, and so we kind of had our things in common and shit. And through osmosis, I just sort of got, I became part of their crowd, and stuff. But when I first moved to that particular school system and stuff, I had every opportunity. If I had just known how to play it cool, I could have been like one of the typical popular kids, but I was too into being me and, all the things that made me different, and it was too much. And as time went on, my reputation got worse and worse, and even this group of friends, who I thought were my friends, and stuff, they started giving me a real hard time and stuff, and although they didn't chase me off, it was just, abuse. It was just, I took so much abuse from all of them, and, but they were the only friends I had. And I remember one Halloween, this one girl had a Halloween party, and, all the kids went, and I went, and all this kind of stuff like that, and it was fun, had a good time. And then it was like a year later, it was the next Halloween, and she had the party again, and everybody was talking about it, and everybody was going and all that stuff like that, and it became really popular really fast. I wasn't invited, and these are the only kids in that entire school system, and it was a pretty big school system. There were a lot of kids in that school, and the only group of kids that I could call my friends didn't want to be my friend, and that hurt. I mean, that really hurt. And that hurt bad enough. But I remember the night of the party, I was sitting home alone. My parents had gone out. And I think my brother even was spending the night over at a friend's house or something. I seem to remember I was alone in the house. I was just watching TV, and the phone rang around 9 o'clock. And, I was feeling pretty miserable because, I was alone. Nobody wanted to be with me. And I picked up the phone, and all these kids were, like, obviously on every extension of every phone in the house where that party was being held. And they just got on the phone and they mocked me, and they said, big faggot, and how's it feel, and they knew, they did it to hurt, and because they said, how's it feel, nobody wants to be your friend, we're having a great time, fuck you, faggot, it's kind of shit like that, and then they all hung up the phone. And I was left with that. And I think that was in a less dramatic way, that was probably the saddest moment of my life. So, needless to say, that's probably a big reason why I am notorious for keeping people at a distance until they are deemed deserving.
Are you capable of killing another person?
Yeah.
Under what circumstances?
Yeah, I think so. I know so. Absolutely. Definitely in self-defense. Definitely in the defense of a loved one or what I perceive to be an innocent under attack. I'm not sure if I'd be a competent executioner. I don't think I could, in that cold, institutionalized, premeditated way, take someone's life, but in a moment of what I would call crisis, desperation, that sort of thing, yeah, definitely. Am I capable of living with the repercussions of it? It depends. If I had a reason to regret killing that person afterwards, then trust me, I'm not sure I would be capable of dealing with it. If I took someone's life and I had overreacted, if it turned out to be a mistake or something like that, no, I don't know how I'd ever be able to forgive myself. But if it was self-defense or just whatever, and it was called for, yeah, I'd be able to. It would haunt me still. It would always haunt me, and stuff. The fact that I had to do that, but yeah, I'd be able to live with it.
Can you see yourself giving up your life for another person or a cause or a belief?
A cause or belief, I'm not so sure about. I think I have noticed that in emergency situations, I tend to I go into automatic and stuff like that, and I just do what I see needs to be done at that moment, and yeah, I've kind of put myself in danger once or twice because of that. I think in an emergency situation or something like that, I might do that, but like gifting somebody my life, I don't know what the circumstances would be, but I think I could, especially if it was someone I really loved, and it was me or them, and I didn't have to think about it too long. I didn't have time to rationalize my way out of it. But if it was one of those knee-jerk, one of us has to go kind of thing, I think I probably would. I like to think I would. Yeah.
You've already covered this a lot, but go into it a little bit more in depth. Do you consider yourself a sexual person?
I mean, what an absurd question for me. God. Yeah, I'm a sexual person. Everybody in my family is a sexual person. I've already hit on this. I mean, yeah, I love sex. It's
When is it good for you?
When is sex good for me? Sex is good for me when it's one of two things. When it's either really hot and sleazy, or when it's, and this is when it really is the best. When I mean, there's just that intense, romantic, loving passion to it. I mean, you can take all the one night stands in the world. You can take all the orgies. You can take all that bullshit, and it's just basically it's just mutual masturbation. You know, using different body parts. But on those incredibly rare occasions when I can just look into their eyes and the absolute enrapturement that I'm feeling towards them is reflecting right back at me, and we just can't get close enough, and we cannot get deep enough, and we cannot make that other person feel any more fantastic. That's when it really works for me. I mean, you know, who wouldn't it for, you know, but you know, that's that Prince Charming syndrome. That's what I'm looking for. And if I can't have that, then fuck it. I'll take the one night stands at the orgies and the, you know, the sex clubs and all that other shit. So.
Who is the sexiest person in the world?
Aida Libido. Sexiest person in the entire world. Sexiest person in the world. Besides Pamela Anderson Lee. She's so sexy. I'd do her. That's saying a lot. Matthew McConaughey. I mean, yeah, Matthew McConaughey. I'm the vice president of the Matthew McConaughey fan club. I worship the very ground he walks on. I would exchange bodily fluids with him. I would like eat his dirty underwear. I would do anything. I mean, he's it. He's what it's all about. He is the perfect man to me. I mean, he's just it. I don't care if he's got a small dick. I don't care if he's got pimples on his butt. I don't care if he's got bad breath or a loose butthole. I don't care. He is it.
Are you a jealous person?
Not really. No. I mean, I can really go there. But the jealousy would probably stem out of an evening or day of particular, you know, me being particularly neurotic. But by nature, nah, I don't think so.
Well, what does it feel like to you when you are?
Emptiness. I feel like my vessel is all the stuff that is contained inside me. It's just poured out and it's gone. I just feel like nothing is there inside me. It's a void. Sort of a crushing, aching void.
If you were, let's change the subject a little bit. If you were cast upon a desert island, you could only be granted 3 things to have on that island with you. What would they be?
A really big and great collection of books. Matthew McConaughey. And a lifetime supply of really good amyl nitrate.
And since you're already on that line, what is the meaning of life?
The meaning of life. The meaning of life. The meaning of life. Oh my God, big one. the meaning of life is to learn. I just don't believe we were here just to exist. I mean, we are here to eventually figure things out. Not necessarily in this lifetime, but, life in the bigger scheme of things. We're here to learn so that we can take what we've learned and take it with us on our travels into different planes and to eventual oneness.
Is that your greatest hope for the future?
Well, yeah, and the big cosmic scale, yeah, sure. I mean, my biggest hope for the future as it pertains to my life, my biggest hope for the future is that I do successfully give back to the universe everything that I can, that I accomplish everything that is meant for me to accomplish artistically, creatively, in love, in romance, in business, and primarily as regards my soul. It sounds so hackneyed, but it really is. I mean, I get caught up in all the bullshit of living the life in Hollywood and LA and West Hollywood and all that kind of stuff. But I live for my soul, and I want to eventually go to my grave knowing that I did as much as I could possibly do to make sure that the next existence, the next stop on the journey, has the best possible tools brought with it from this one. So, yeah.
In closing, is there anything you've said or not said that you wish to correct or add to?
Yeah. I would like to say just one last thing. I want to thank everybody who's done this interview for me for doing this, because I started it as a lark and it seemed like a good idea, but with every person I've interviewed so far, and hopefully with every person I will after this, I have learned so much about you, and I've been surprised, and I've laughed, and I've been touched and moved, and sometimes a little horrified and all, but you have all left very beautiful memorials to yourself having done this, and I thank you.